Celtic in the Champions League with all the build-up and reaction on Independence Live.
Good evening and welcome to the locker room on a Tuesday night. Yes, a Tuesday night is fireworks night, and there's been a few fireworks at Celtic Park tonight. See what I did there. So it finished in the Champions League. Celtic 3, Leipzig 1 at Celtic Park, the game that has just finished in the Champions League. Joined tonight to help me talk through the game by Mr. Robbie Collins. Robbie, how are you?
Aye, not bad. Just watched an absolute cracking of a game in the Champions League. Thought Celtic were thoroughly deserving of the win, so aye, well done to them.
And also joined by Mikey. Mikey, what's happening, mate?
Yeah, not too much. Just very much enjoyed the game that I watched. It was a very interesting game overall as well.
Certainly was. As always, people get your comments in. We've already got a few comments coming in here. So Stacey Gannon says, come on the Celts. And Joe Dos Scooterin, great name, says, hi. So we will talk about Celtic against Leipzig. Maybe we're on to 11 o'clock tonight. We might touch later on as well on the two games that are happening on Thursday in the Conference League and Europa League involving Rangers and Hearts. But the main conversation, of course, is Celtic. Now, before we get to the team news and the actual moments in the game, Robbie, I think coming out of this game, a lot of folks thought that was going to be a difficult game for Celtic, a Leipzig side that are second in the Bundesliga. But Celtic were absolutely fantastic tonight.
Yeah, I mean, Celtic deserved the 3 points in the end. When you look into the game, though, you know, this wasn't going to be easy. Leipzig were a team that are second best in the Bundesliga so far, only recently just lost their first game to Dortmund. Narrowly as well, and we know what happened when Celtic went to Dortmund. So this was a game where, you know, there was a lot of expectations on Celtic. They couldn't afford to get battered again, like they did against Dortmund a few weeks ago. And I think that sent a message. You know, people were saying, is a Celtic again in the Champions League not being good enough? But I think that sent a message that Celtic can compete against these teams, especially at home. And I thought, you know, we're going to talk about it. I thought they deserved the 3 points over the course of the 90 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey, coming out of this game, I mean, it's been a bit unfortunate for Leipzig because their first three fixtures were Atletico Madrid, Juventus and Liverpool. It's not been the easiest run. And then going to a team like Celtic Park tonight, they are now sitting on 0 points. But you have to give credit to Celtic because they were just outstanding tonight.
Yeah, you absolutely do. And I mean, I think the main thing for me was that the Celtic crowd was right behind them from minute one. It would have been very easy to kind of get on the players' back when they went 1-0 down. Even though when they did go 1-0 down, I think it was still a very even game. Maybe Celtic were slightly on top. But I think after the Dortmund game and after, we've seen it so many times in Europe with Celtic, if they go down a goal, they usually concede one or two more quite close after that. But yeah, they held on. And I mean, to go in 2-1 up at half-time was absolutely massive, I think.
Good evening to our good friend and colleague from the Indie Live. It is James Elliott. He says, terrific performance from Celtic tonight, and it certainly was, which we'll get to. So looking at the two teams tonight, Celtic lined up like this. It was Schmeichel in goal, Johnston and Carter-Vickers, Trusty and Taylor, McGregor, Engels, Hatate, Kuhn, Maeda and Kyogo. On the bench for Celtic, it was the sub-goalkeeper Sinisalo, Scales, Palma, Ida, Valley, Yang, McCowan, Navroshke, Bernardo, Forrest, Ralston and Welsh. Now, I wasn't going to do this, but I will do it because I'm going to try and pronounce some of these Leipzig names. I'm going to butcher half of them. But in goals, it was Gulaxi. Then they had Gertruda, Orban, Bitschwai, Nusa, Hadara, Openda, Baumgartner, Seshko, Henriks and Campbell. I don't think I butchered that too much. On the bench, they had Van der Voort, Elma, Poulsen, Sievald, Klosterman, Vermeeren, Andre Silva, Odegaard and Gebel. So that'll do. I'm not going to try and pronounce those games again. So for Celtic, Robbie, not really a lot of surprises in the team. It was pretty much the same team that started against Aberdeen in the Cup. The one change was Taylor in for Valley. Do you think that was the right decision from Brendan Rodgers tonight? Any surprise with that?
Yeah, I mean, well, when I spoke to a few Celtic fans, I know, you know, that before the Aberdeen game on Saturday, they were more than happy for Taylor to drop out the team when he came back in tonight. I mean, like, I don't think Val done much wrong against Aberdeen. I don't think any of the team did, to be honest. It was a pretty well-deserved performance. But I just felt with the way the game panned out overall, I think Taylor was the right decision. It just, the whole left side, it was one of the points I noted down that, Celtic were very heavy on attacking that left-hand side and using Maeda and Taylor down the flanks, and it worked pretty well. So I am not surprised that Taylor came in, and it certainly worked.
Mikey, one of the other things that a lot of folk were talking about was who was going to play alongside Carter Vickers. Would it be Trusty? Would it be Scales? Again, probably no surprise that Trusty started. And to be fair, recently he has actually been very impressive for Celtic after a bit of a shaky start.
Yeah, I agree. And I mean, obviously, when you saw him last season at a very struggling Sheffield United side, it was, I think when the sign was kind of announced, people were very underwhelmed by it. But it seems after the sort of shaky start he's had, he's very much kicked on, and he's basically just fitting in seamlessly at the moment. And I mean, Liam Scales behind him hasn't really done much wrong either. So it's a very good problem for them to have, especially when they're playing on like multiple different fronts at one time.
Robbie, you look at that Celtic squad depth, the team that started, you look at that bench we've just read out, you've got Palma, Ida, Valley, Yang, McCowan, Navrosky, Bernardo, Forrest. They've just got such a strong squad, Celtic.
Yeah, you could literally go on and on. I think Mikey said it before we came on air that is why Celtic are so dominant. Everybody's going last week that Aberdeen can they challenge Celtic. Well, I think that game on Saturday proved absolutely not. Celtic are miles in front of every other team in Scotland, and that's why they've got good squad depth. When a player isn't doing well, it's so easy to replace them. But the whole team is doing well, so it does give Brendan Rodgers a sort of good headache, if you will. But the Celtic squad depth, it shows in these type of seasons where they are playing weekly football.
The game started very, very quickly. There was a chance in the first minute from Maeda, who had a shot from the left-hand side, pull back. It was a great ball back from Engels, and it was blocked. Then Leipzig came on the counter-attack, and for the first, I would say 15 minutes, Mikey, Celtic were pretty much in control. A lot of good passing, maybe not a lot of chances, but they certainly started the game very well.
To be honest, I think both sides actually started the game pretty much how they would have wanted. I think for the first sort of 15 minutes, up until really the Leipzig goal, I think it was very open. Both sides really were kind of threatening. I mean, yes, Celtic had a bit more of the ball, but Leipzig were obviously that kind of threat on the counter-attack and when they did have the ball. So I think obviously the first sort of 15 minutes really set us up for a really good game. And especially when obviously in the first couple of minutes when it went from sort of end to end and there was a couple of decent opportunities up sort of either end.
Yeah, Robert, it was mentioned during the commentary on TNT that obviously, I just mentioned it earlier, the fact that Leipzig have failed to win a game this season. They really had to win the game today, and it did make for a very open game.
Yeah, I mean, Leipzig always coming. Leipzig were never going to sit in and be that defensive team. Just not how it works. I mean, the football in Germany is so open and so fast-flowing if you watch an actual Bundesliga match that you almost felt this one would be kind of the same at points, and it was. I mean, a good friend of the show, Rory Hamilton, was saying for the first minute, how open the game was, and it was. There was a lot of space for the players to run into, and I think that set up for a really, really good match. But Leipzig, they had to come and be attacking, but Celtic also had to be attacking because it's so easy, as we've seen in previous Champions League games, for them to sit in and get picked apart. But Celtic, with the fans behind their back, came in and went at Leipzig.
Evening to Aslino, our regular Partick Thistle, our St Mirren fan. Evening, gents. That's how I want to see the Scottish champions, whichever team they may be, playing European competition. Great stuff, and they were two well-matched teams. I mean, at Celtic Park, Mikey, Celtic are a very different animal, especially European football. You could sense the crowd was maybe not after Leipzig scored, but certainly early on, the Celtic crowd were up for that.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you always kind of have on European nights with Celtic. I mean, it's kind of what you expect from them, and yeah, sometimes it can really help them. Like, it gets them over the line in quite a lot of their sort of European games, but there are obviously times when the opposition's just a bit too strong. So I think that the way that Celtic played kind of off the back of the crowd tonight really helped them, and that's what I think kind of, I guess, got them through the moments when Leipzig maybe had a bit more of the ball. But to be honest, I think Celtic had it not easy, but I think they made kind of easy work of it, in especially the sort of second half of the game.
Yeah, I mean, Robert, the opening goal comes in 22 minutes, and it all starts from Openda having a shot that was saved by Schmeichel. It was going wide, but I don't think Schmeichel knows that. He's going to make the save. But then from the corner, Kevin Campbell puts in a great ball, and it's a really good header from Baumgartner from the corner. But that'll be something that probably frustrates Brendan Rodgers and the Celtic defence, that it was such an easy header to score.
Yeah, and I think to give Joe Hart actually credit on commentary, I thought he was very, very good tonight. He said at the time, you know, that's one of them where Schmeichel probably does know it's going wide, but he just doesn't want to take the risk on it, and it's just, you know, get it out for the corner. But there was a few times where, you know, they gave away some cheap corners. It happens, but I thought for how well the ball was delivered in and how good, you know, the header was. I'm not even going to try and pronounce his name. You know, Engels drops him relatively easy. And it's one thing I noted was, you know, Orban as well and Carter Vickers. There was a couple of times where he managed to get in front of Vickers. So I think the one big thing tonight was, you know, could a Leipzig be more dangerous on the set pieces? But that's not to discredit Celtic, because I thought for what they did defended it very, very well.
Yeah, it's a very fair point. And honestly, Mikey, the delivery from Campbell, especially first half, because not long after Leipzig scored, about 2 minutes later, they've got another chance, another really good ball in from Campbell again. And it's a free header by Orban who puts it wide. Now, at that point, Leipzig were really starting to dominate, starting to take hold of the game. And if that goes in for 2-0, it might be a different game.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of goes without saying, but I think if Orban goes and scores, then obviously Leipzig get the boost and Celtic are kind of deflated from that. I think the opportunity that Leipzig obviously gave Celtic in the end kind of can be, I suppose, traced back to that moment, because if they go 2-0 up there, then, as you said, it becomes a very different game. But yeah, I think that Celtic did a very good job after that to kind of reassert themselves within the game, because at that point it is very easy to kind of drop off. And if you've seen two really good chances, obviously one going in and one just kind of being headed wide, I mean, it's quite easy to kind of drop into your shape and try and stop Leipzig from continuing to get those opportunities. But Celtic kind of met it head on, and I think that really helped them in the end.
As Lino says, lots of excellent one-touch passing, wee flicks and taps. Celtic certainly held their nerve, certainly did. Surely Campbell is descended from a Scottish Hanseatic trader called Campbell. I'm not even going to try and think what that means. But on 30 minutes, Robbie, there's another chance for Leipzig. Nusa is put through on goal, just fired wide. And at that point, you could sense a little bit of frustration with the Celtic crowd, because Leipzig were starting to dominate. They were starting to get chances. And again, it's a decent chance for Leipzig there.
Yeah, I mean, it's only normal that, you know, these type of teams will get chances and will get a bit of the ball, especially when you're playing a team, you know, that is from Scotland. I mean, Leipzig were never, you know, going to be blown away fully. You know, they would get spells in the game. They did. Nusa is a good talent. Unfortunately, it just didn't really show it tonight. To be honest, there's a few players in that Leipzig team that I really thought would have done better. I thought Sesko would have had a better game as well up front. So there was a few players that have definitely underperformed for Leipzig. But again, I'm not trying to take anything away from Celtic. They had a really, really good performance. But Leipzig definitely had a few chances to maybe extend their scoreline.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie mentioned Sesko there, Mikey. He's 6'6". But to be honest, apart from maybe one chance in the second half, I thought Carter Vickers and Trusty handled him very well.
Yeah, to be honest, I was very disappointed with Sesko's performance, especially, off the back of sort of the poor start the Leipzig have had to the Champions League campaign. You know, you can expect their key players to kind of show up, and every time I've really seen Sesko, be it the Euros or tonight, I mean, he's never really been as sort of clinical or as good as I've kind of heard him to be. And tonight was kind of another example of that. I think that Carter Vickers did a very good job at handling him. And I don't really think there was really an opportunity in which you think that he should score. But at the same time, like, he was obviously not getting involved in the game enough, and he wasn't putting himself in the position to be able to score. So, yeah, I think it was a very disappointing performance by him, but also there wasn't really the surface into him all night, in my opinion, which would have gotten the goal.
Just to respond to one of the comments about, you know, Celtic playing a good one-touch football, you know, it is refreshing to see. In Scottish football, where the way a lot of teams set up, you don't often get to see that. You know, we know the players, especially from Celtic, have the quality to play that type of football, but with the way a lot of the teams in our league are set up, you don't often see that. You know, it's often Celtic just passing it around and trying to break teams down. So you actually see a match where both teams are going at each other, and Celtic, you know, they're not afraid to get their foot in the ball and drive forward. It was really, really good to see.
Yeah, Mikey, the game really changes on 34 minutes. So the ball is out on the right-hand side. Kuhn cuts inside on his left foot. He hits it in off the post. Now, there's a lot of debate on TNT and on the radio as well. Was that a cross or a shot?
If I'm being completely honest, I think it was a cross, because you kind of see the way that he kind of, the technique he puts on is very much like a cross. Now, whether he actually meant that as a cross itself, or he meant to try and catch the keeper out by doing that, I guess we'll never know. But the amount of times you'll see him do that during a game where he cuts in and takes a shot, it wouldn't surprise me if he has gone for the shot there, but it was just the technique looked so much like a cross. But regardless, it was still a brilliant finish, regardless of whether he meant it or not. I mean, that was the real game changer. And I mean, he was absolutely excellent tonight, but that was a really brilliant goal. And we've seen that so many times from him already this season. Just look at the Cup semi-final at the weekend. He scored an outrageous goal against Aberdeen, and obviously he's right back to it tonight as well. So, yeah, he's really on it at the moment, and he's kind of proved everyone wrong that was sort of doubting him in last season with the slow start he had. I mean, this season I think he's been Celtic's best player, in all honesty. He's been absolutely excellent, and that just showed again tonight.
Yeah, Robbie, I think it's always nice when you see a shot going off the post, but I actually agree. I think that's a cross.
Yeah, I think if you were to ask him, he'd probably tell you a million times that it was meant to be a shot, but just with the way he hits the ball, it definitely looks like it was meant to be a cross. But listen, take nothing away from it, it was an absolute brilliant finish. We've seen a couple of them there the last couple of weeks. I know Tanzer had one for us. I know Salah had one as well for Liverpool at one point. So it seems there's a few of the type of shots for him. But aye, absolutely brilliant work for him to get that goal.
Yeah, I mean, just touching on Kuhn, Mike, you mentioned it there. I think he's been brilliant. And I said this on Friday as well. I didn't realise how quick he actually is. He's very, very quick. Now, I heard him kind of being referenced as like kind of a comparison to Jota, who was at Celtic. Now, it's difficult to compare the two because they're both different players. But so far, now Kuhn's got 9 goals now after tonight with the 2 goals he's got. He has been outstanding. His touch, his awareness, willing to drive at people. You know, I like wingers that get on the ball and take people on, and he does that all the time.
Yeah, I mean, having seen him at the weekend in person, you just, as you said, you don't really think of him as this rapid player, but he really is quick. He's really intelligent, and I think he's when he plays, especially within Scottish football, you can just tell he's a level above everyone else on the park at times. And obviously, it took a bit of time to kind of see that from him. But yeah, the Jota comparisons are kind of, you could say, warranted, because, I mean, the way that he's been playing and the way that he's kind of getting, I mean, Celtic are not usually having to scrape results over the line, let's be honest. They're kind of beating teams by 2 and 3 almost every week. But yeah, the way that he's sort of playing and the way that he's getting goal involvements, there's no surprise that he's getting compared with the likes of Jota, because, I mean, he's been absolutely excellent. And as I said, I think he's been at least one of their best players this season, if not the best.
Good evening to Morgan, who is watching us on YouTube. Hope you're well, Morgan. I mean, Robbie, it's funny how games can change, because I just talked about the fact that obviously after Leipzig scored, there are a few big chances to go 2-0 up. But once Celtic got that equaliser, they pretty much dominated after that.
Yeah, and I think that also shows how much the fans can change a game as well, because, you know, as we spoke about, the fans went a bit quiet after, you know, especially after Leipzig scored. So to get that goal, it gave the team and the fans a big boost. And for the rest of the half especially, they went on to dominate very, very well. But, you know, one player the first 30 minutes I actually thought lacked a bit was, you know, the guy that's Celtic spent a lot of money on, Engels. I actually thought there was a few times where he was quite poor during the first half. I don't know if that was just, you know, maybe McGregor and Hatate being really, really good, but I did pick out Engels as the guy that was sort of slow to get into the game.
It's a fair point, actually, Mikey, because I think Engels is a good player. When you spend a lot of money on a player, you do want him to be providing in games like this, but it was probably one of his quieter games tonight.
To be fair, I don't think there's really been many outstanding performances by Engels yet. I mean, I think that obviously when there's that sort of price tag, there's a lot to live up to. But I think from speaking to Celtic fans and from seeing the sort of reaction online, I think there has been a little bit of that almost disappointment in the way that Engels has started. Now, he has been brought in for these European nights, so he has to kind of be at the top of his game every single time for him to live up to those expectations. But yeah, I think there's just been games. I mean, obviously, he has had really good games as well. But I think there has just been games where he has been sort of outshone by the likes of McGregor and Hatate, who, yes, have had very good starts to the season. But yeah, you are kind of expecting a bit more from someone with that sort of much money. And yeah, I think he started the game slowly. Obviously, he did grow into it towards the end of the game. But yeah, I think he was slightly disappointing at times, especially sort of in that start of the first half. I think he started really sort of slowly.
We talked about Kuhn, Robbie, and on 37 minutes, not long after Celtic had equalised, Kuhn plays an absolutely fantastic ball outside of the foot pass to Maeda. Maeda puts it over the bar. In the form that Maeda is in, I think a lot of folk were thinking he's going to score this, but he puts it over the bar. But the pass from Kuhn, it's just outstanding. Outside of the foot, it's a great ball.
Absolutely unbelievable. I mean, it was great team play to even get the ball to Kuhn in the first place, and it just shows how good he is with that ball. And I think 9 times out of 10, Maeda probably finishes that, but it didn't, unfortunately. And I just wonder if Kyogo would say he probably would have finished it as well. But you know, at that point, Celtic fans were probably thinking about, well, there's no really anything to be scared of these guys. You know, they've came here with such high expectations. I mean, you've read it with the German reports all week. They've said they don't see any fear in Celtic. I think at that point, you know, their heads were probably turned, going, Celtic are a real threat here. So, it was a big chance, but at that moment, you probably thought, well, Celtic will just get more, and they did.
Yeah, I mean, Mike, it's difficult to know because we're not in Germany, but do you think a lot of people in Germany probably underestimated Celtic tonight?
To an extent, yes. Mainly down to the Borussia Dortmund result. I think when a team from your country goes and beats the same sort of club 7-1, I mean, that obviously is going to lead to a little bit of that. Maybe not actively thinking about it, but that sort of subconscious feeling that, yeah, this team's not quite as good. But I mean, I think if any of the German media or anything was really looking at a sort of a objective view of the game, they would have been able to tell that Celtic would be a threat. I mean, just look at Saturday. I think that Celtic would have beat so many teams if they played how they did on Saturday, and I suppose how they kind of carried it over into tonight. So I don't think anyone should have been looking them over. I certainly don't think Leipzig did. But I think that obviously a bit of that subconscious might come in with the fact that Celtic had been beaten and embarrassed 7-1 by Dortmund, who are actually a worse side than Leipzig this season. So yeah, I suppose there is maybe that subconscious element, but I don't think Leipzig themselves overlooked Celtic, because that's just not how football clubs operate. They have to take every game sort of in its own sort of thing. And yeah, I don't think Leipzig would have overlooked Celtic.
So on 43 minutes, Johnson had a shot that was easily held by Galatsky. On 44 minutes, Kyogo was almost put in, but it was a great block. And then just before half-time, so obviously when I do the show, when I know I'm hosting, I'm writing notes down, and I was just about to write 1-1 half-time, but clearly not. Because down the left-hand side, Celtic's pressing, wins the ball back, really good play from Hatate, plays in Taylor, who lays the ball back. It looks like it's going to fall, Robbie, to Maeda. Now, I think he's trying to shoot, but he looks like he's done with it. And then there's Kuhn at the back post to knock it in for 2-1. And we always say about a great time to score. Well, to score on the stroke of half-time to go 2-1 up, Robbie, couldn't have come at a better time for Celtic.
Yeah, it was exactly what Celtic were looking for. And I think, you know, there was signs earlier in the game where Leipzig had to be careful, because I think there was a point where I think it was Kyogo managed to win the ball off a lob and high up the pitch and nearly sneak in. So there was a few times during the game where the high press nearly caught Leipzig out. It happened again, great work by Celtic, and I'd agree. I think maybe the boy was trying to hit the ball, but it falls nicely, and you know, there was never any doubt it was going to finish it. So I think Celtic get the goal exactly when they needed it, right on half time, and I think that sort of set the tempo for the rest of the match.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey, Leipzig are obviously a team that want to play it for the back. They did it quite a few times during that game, but that first half, just before half time, the press from Celtic, you know, they could have easily sat off and thought, right, get to half time, 1-1, we'll take that. But the press to win that ball back and then score, I mean, they were all over Leipzig at that point. Just the sheer press, Leipzig just could not cope.
Yeah, I think the crowd played a huge element in that, because you could kind of tell that the atmosphere was really building coming up to half time. Every time they were winning that ball back, there would be a massive sort of roar from the crowd, and you couldn't really sense the goal coming, but you could see that Celtic were really growing into it more and more, and they'd been really dominating for the sort of, I suppose, like 15 minutes up until that point. And then the goal was just a carbon copy of 3 or 4 goals I've had this season. Obviously, the one against Rangers springs to mind, and was it the 6th goal against Aberdeen, one of the Maeda goals. It's very, very similar to that when they kind of get it to the byline, pull it back, and there's 2 or 3 options right in the middle to go and get a tap in. And I think that's what Celtic are so good at. Just the movement that they have and the way that they can just sort of spring from back to front so quickly. It's brilliant. And yeah, I think that's really what set them apart from not only Leipzig tonight, but all the other Scottish clubs over the sort of recent weeks. And I mean, in that semi-final against Aberdeen, not to bring it back to that so many times, but yeah, it was very similar to that in the way that they were sort of flooding forward. And it just seemed if one of them mishit the ball, which Maeda did, there was 2 or 3 people behind them that were going to have either an easy tap in or an easy pass. And yeah, it was very interesting to see, especially against such a good European opponent.
Good evening to Ross, our Kelly fan on YouTube. Hope you're well, mate. Before we get to the second half, Robbie, it was 2-1 to Celtic at half-time. Before we get to the second half, I want to talk about Callum McGregor because, again, tonight, he just sets the tempo for everything Celtic do. He dictates the game. He is just, obviously, Celtic's captain, but he's a leader on that park. And everything tonight went through him. He was everywhere. And I thought, as much as Kuhn was great, got 2 goals, and Hatate was really good, I thought McGregor was outstanding tonight, yet again for Celtic.
Yeah, McGregor showed exactly why he is the captain of Celtic, and I know during the summer there was a lot of questions on whether he should still be captain. I can't believe there was, to be honest. He is such a good leader to have in the middle of the park, and maybe that is why Engels, from our perspective, had such a poor game, because as Mikey said earlier, the price tag, but also how well McGregor and Hatate also played in that midfield, just completely outshone him. But McGregor showed why he's the leader of Celtic and why he should still be the captain, because he's absolutely phenomenal.
Mikey, I think every club, like my own, your one, Robbie's one, would love a guy with McGregor in that midfield. He's just so comfortable on the ball. He's so composed. You very rarely see him give the ball away. And on a night like that, a European game at Celtic Park, he just controlled that game. I said it before, I think McGregor, for me, was a standout player in that park.
Well, due to the fact that I am a Hibs fan, I pretty much would take anyone in our midfield at this stage. But yeah, I mean, Callum McGregor is just unbelievable. He's obviously, we saw what we're kind of missing with Scotland. What he brings to that Celtic side, you can't always really see it on the eye because he's maybe not the flashy player or the one that's going to get you from back to front that quickly, but he's just so good at patrolling that midfield, and obviously he's come up with so many big goals this season. I think he was the league's top scorer at one point on certainly Celtic's. He's just so important, and I don't think that can be overlooked at all. And I think that's what teams like Rangers are really missing at the moment, that leader from midfield that's going to drive them forward and either get a goal or push the team up to go and score somewhere else. But yeah, I mean, he's just so important to that team.
Morgan says, Callum McGregor's class. He seems to still be amazing. I don't understand why he retired from international football. Thing is, Robbie, I suppose Scotland's lost the Celtic's gain because they're getting the best out of him just now. But I can't lie. I really wish he'll still play for Scotland.
Yeah, I think we all do. But is this maybe why he's playing so well? Because he's not getting that much pressure having to go away in the international breaks and play more football. More pressure. He can come into these type of games and really show what he's worth. So I do get it. I think everybody wants him to still be playing with Scotland, but I think every Celtic fan, would probably be looking at him and going, we're happy he's not playing with Scotland because we're getting the best out of him now.
Ross says, see the way Celtic passed through the middle, it works, and Leipzig should have focused on that. As Lino says, at one point, McGregor went on a tremendous driving run, and it made me wish he hadn't retired from international duty. I think that's what everyone's thinking. And Ross says, Killie have a mini one in midfield, David Watson. Well, I do like David Watson, but he's miles off Callum McGregor. But talking about the second half, and I just mentioned him there, Callum McGregor does make a really good driving run, 49 minutes. Feeds in Kuhn, who puts it just over the bar. 53 minutes, Hatate has an effort on his right foot, which is just deflected wide. And again, I want to talk about Hatate as well, Mikey. Because again, I think last season maybe wasn't his great season. I know he had injuries and stuff, but I think he's come back this season and he's looked a lot stronger. And he's, his touch on the ball, a bit like McGregor, he's a very, very classy player.
Yeah, he definitely is, and I think there was that kind of criticism coming in from Celtic fans at times last season. You know, there was that whole thing when people were saying, "Does he deserve to have that starting place?" But yeah, I think he's absolutely solidified that now, and you can just tell the way that he's playing. Obviously, they've got Callum McGregor behind him. He's the one that can drive them forward, and I mean, somehow out of him and a £10 million player, he's the one that's shining out at the moment. So yeah, I think that it's a massive gain for Celtic. The fact that not only do they have this brilliant midfield, but we'll obviously get into it later, but they have players like Bernardo and McCowan that are very high quality that can come off the bench as well. So, yeah, I mean, having Hatate in week out, he's just such a good player. And as he said, he brings that kind of the class to the midfield that obviously if McGregor does the dirty work, he's the one that kind of pushes forward. And yeah, he pops up with goals, he pops up with assists. He's so important to that team. But I think that every single Celtic player at the moment has a role, and that's what's really working for them. You can tell that every single player has a different job within that team.
Ross says, brilliant experience for me tonight. Got pals who took me on a Champions League experience. See the quality Celtic have. And Hoggy Boy just says simply, yes, Celtic. Yeah, I mean, Celtic were frightening tonight. Thank you, as always, people, to the comments. It's been much appreciated. Got a lot of comments tonight, which is great. On 63 minutes, Chesko had a shot that was saved by Schmeichel. We talked about him earlier on, Robbie. That was probably the only real shot Chesko had.
Yeah, I think so. And if you look at, I mean, Leipzig, both strikers are Penda and Sesko. They're very, very good players in their own right. You know, they can get goals. But tonight, I think that was a massive credit to Celtic's defence because they really stopped that. Leipzig had been able to do much, to be honest. So full credit to them. But it was a relatively poor night in terms of Sesko's standards.
65 minutes, there was a shot from Hatate that was saved by Gulatsky for a corner. Then on 66 minutes, Celtic made a double change. They took off Taylor and Engels and brought on Valle and Bernardo. We touched on him earlier on. Engels lasting 66 minutes. I mean, Celtic have won the game, Mikey, so you can't really be critical of anybody. But, you said it earlier, Engels hasn't really had the desired effect. And we talk about the fact that he signed for £11 million on a European night. You're looking for him to stamp his authority on that game, and he didn't really do it.
No, but I do think they did improve towards the end of sort of his game, and I think that, as I said, he started to kind of shine through a little bit more before he came off, and that was obviously because Celtic were brimming with confidence. But as I said, I don't really think there's been that real standout performance for Engels yet. Obviously, he's had good performances, but there hasn't really been any where he's really sort of asserted himself as this next Matt O'Reilly, as he was brought in to be the O'Reilly replacement. I don't think we've really seen that from him yet, and obviously he needs a bit of time. But yeah, these are the type of games when Celtic are playing well, that he can take the game by the scruff of the neck and either score, get an assist, do something that gets the crowd on their feet. And yes, he did get good towards the end of his time on the park. He was starting to go into the game, but yeah, he came off quite early, and I don't think he really took advantage of the opportunity he was really given tonight.
As Lino says, Makura Hatate's weakness is first time shooting, but if he was nailing that, he'd probably play for Barcelona or similar. On 70 minutes, Baumgartner has a shot that was saved by Schmeichel, and then Robbie, the game is effectively killed off in 71 minutes. Hatate follows up. It's Alistair Johnson on the right-hand side, tries to put in a cross. It is spilled by Gulatsky, but fair play to Hatate is there to follow it up. I mean, like I say, you have to give credit to the attacker. Well done, Hatate, but it's a really, really poor error from a very experienced goalkeeper.
Yeah, Galasha is very, very well experienced, and when the ball comes in, it was a very, very, very easy overlap from Johnston just to get in behind. Ball played across, and I think 9 out of 10 times Galasha will probably save that relatively easily, but it just absolutely fumbles it, and that happens sometimes. And I think on the other end of the park, you've got to give credit to Schmeichel, because I thought there was a few chances where he done really, really well to save them. So, it was poor for Galasha, but I thought it was well worked for Celtic, and I think ultimately I thought it deserved the third goal.
Yeah, it just goes to show moments in games can change very quickly, because a minute before that goal, I just touched on it there, Schmeichel makes a really good save from Baumgartner. I mean, if that goes in 2-2, it would be a different game, but it just goes to show football changes very quickly. I mean, Galasha is very experienced. I've seen him play a few times, but that, for me, is a pretty simple cross to deal with, and he doesn't deal with it. But you've got to give credit to Hatate. he doesn't give up on it, and he scores.
Yeah, exactly. But I do think that obviously cutting the keeper a little bit of slack. It was kind of a good ball in across the ground. There was obviously a defender quite close by. I guess you could maybe say that he was thinking the defender was going to clear it or whatever. He might have literally just spilled it out of his hands. But yeah, I mean, it obviously looks a very bad error. And yeah, Hatate was there to follow up. Nearly put it over the bar, but yeah, he did manage to kind of sneak it in. But yeah, it was a really good sort of. It was a massive moment for Celtic because that was when the game was almost like it was basically killed off at that point because you're thinking Leipzig now have a really uphill battle against the Celtic crowd that's now right behind them. Well, they were anyway, but it's at full volume. And at that point, you just couldn't really see a way back into the game for Leipzig. And to be fair, it's not exactly like Leipzig were absolutely dominating and their keeper makes a mistake. Celtic were well sort of warranted that goal. And the way that they were kind of playing for the entire game, it was certainly deserved. So it's not exactly like they were just handed it on a plate. Yeah, they did have to work a very hard game for it. But yeah, once that goal went in, I think it almost kind of killed any momentum that Leipzig were trying to build back into the game.
Hoggy Boy says, Engels is still getting used to the way we play. He will come good. Ross says, bye lads, thanks for another great show. I'll be doing podcasts on Sunday talking to Killie and Celtic fans. Cheers, Ross. Much appreciated, mate. On 72 minutes, as a double change for Celtic, Kuhn and Carter Vickers went off to be replaced by Yang and Scales. I mean, you can't really... It's difficult because Celtic have won the game, Robbie, but you look at man of the match, I mentioned McGregor, Kuhn was really good, but apart from obviously that lapse in concentration for the first goal for Leipzig, Carter Vickers was excellent, and he's such a big player for Celtic.
Yeah, when Carter Vickers had that small spell out, I think you could see the effects that it had. He is such a big player in that Celtic team, but in terms of on the night stuff, I thought your centre-back partner Trusty was also very, very good. I think the both of them worked excellent together to stop any sort of Leipzig dangerous attack, and it just shows you what having a good centre-back duo can do for you. You know, Carter Vickers comes in. Scales, I don't think, done particularly bad when he was getting runs in the team either, but it just shows you how well Carter Vickers can actually play, that he can come back in and, you know, the defensive line is so dangerous and stop attacks.
Mikey, he got just over 20 minutes. I actually thought Yang looked good when he came on.
Yeah, I mean, it was kind of unexpected because what I've seen from Yang so far is not really, it's harsh to say, but I don't think he's really shown much in a Celtic shirt to really deserve to be kind of still within that fold. But I mean, yeah, he came on, he did his job. And I mean, kind of coming on as an attacking player at 3-1 up, you're not really needing to do a massive amount within the game. But yeah, I think what he didn't really do anything massively wrong. And yeah, I think that fair play to him for getting into such a good Celtic team at the moment. And especially from where he was back in, January, February, when it looked as though he'd be out by at the end of the season. For him to still have that kind of place within the team, fair enough to him. And yeah, it's deserved. And I think he played well when he came on. He didn't really have a massive amount to do. But yeah, as you said, I think he did play quite well when he came on.
Robert, there was a big chance for Leipzig on 77 minutes. A really good ball in from Gertrude, and it's headed over the bar by Poulsen. Now, that was a big opportunity.
Yeah, I mean, Poulsen's another one of the players where, he probably does score that a lot of the other times he gets that chance, but it doesn't on the night, and I just wonder if that maybe could have been a game changer. It still would have been very difficult, as Mikey said, with the crowd on, against you. A really, really big uphill battle. I still would have backed Celtic to hold out the game, but that's the chances that Leipzig will look back in the game and go, that could have been the game changer.
Yeah, I mean, Mikey, 80 minutes on the clock and Celtic make another change. Ida comes on for Kyogo. Kyogo didn't score, but like I've said to the guys previously, like Michael and Regan before, I mean, his movement is a constant threat. He's always on the move. He never stops running. He always plays on the shoulder. Again, although he didn't score, he put in a very good shift.
Yeah, and I think it's the entire front three now that they've really got that formula working between him, Maeda, and Nicholas Kuhn on the right. I think that all three of them can sort of interchange with each other with the way that they move. And I think when you look at Kyogo, he's not really got that striker build, if you know what I mean. He's very he's quite small, he's quite fast. And yeah, it's not really the build of an out-and-out goal scorer. So you can kind of see why he doesn't score as many goals, but he's still so integral to that team. And yeah, when you've got that player that's causing threats, it opens up holes within the defence and between the midfield and everything. So I think that Kyogo does a massive job. Even if you don't see it at times, he's so good at dragging players out the way, opening gaps up for other players. I think that what he does, it really can go under the radar at times, but it can't be understated. I think he's so important to that team, and that's why he continuously gets played even when he isn't scoring.
Robbie, that front three of Celtic, especially at Celtic Park, Kuhn, Kyogo and Maeda, they have got so much pace. It is very difficult to deal with, as Aberdeen found out to their cost on Saturday.
Yeah, it's a very, very dangerous front three, and it's a front three that not many teams in the league can deal with. I mean, if you look at other teams in the league, Hearts, for example, they have Shankland. That's a big body up front. He's not been in the goal scoring form this season, but I think in this league, it is always good when your attackers have pace. You just need to look at the start. For example, Olasanya's had at us. He got after a very, very good start. If you have pace with some of these defences where, it is the big guys at the back that are trying to stop everybody coming forward, if you can get pace in between these guys like Kyogo, like Olasanya, like anybody else, Ronan Hale as well at Ross County, he's another one that's quite fast. They can get the chances this season. So it does show that pace can work, and with Celtic, the front three, it's very, very dangerous.
There was one more chance before the end of the game, 85 minutes. Yang, who I thought did very well when it came on, just over the bar. But Celtic did run out 3-1 winners. It puts them on 7 points. And their next 4 games, they've got Bruges at home, they're away to Zagreb, home to Young Boys, and away to Aston Villa. Mikey, I think if I'm looking at those fixtures, Celtic have got a very, very good chance now of qualifying. The question is, though, could they actually get top 8?
I think that with the sort of run they're coming up to, I think that the realistic, maybe not target, but what they should be, I suppose, hoping for is if they're looking at those fixtures, 9 points is what they'll be looking at. I think the Aston Villa will be probably a step too far. I think it'll be a really good game, but I think that will be a bit too far for them, because I think that the English Premier League, just with the standard of even the mid-table teams, is just unbelievable, and it kind of can go under the radar at times because obviously they're playing each other, so maybe it doesn't look quite as one-sided. But I think when you see them play any other teams within Europe, it becomes quite apparent that the English League is so far ahead of others. But yeah, I think they'll be looking at Bruges, Zagreb and Young Boys and thinking, we could go here and at least get 7 points, possibly 9. And if they get 9, then I don't see why they can't be in and around that top 8. Maybe between 8th and 24th where the playoffs are. But yeah, they should be certainly looking at this and going, we should now be in a position where we're not going to go out automatically. We can either get playoffs or automatically into the next round, which is an unbelievable achievement for a team like Celtic, who, yes, are a massive club, but you take the finances, the squad worth, and I mean, the job that they're doing, especially with Brendan Rodgers, the job that he's doing, it's absolutely unbelievable. And I think this new format's really suited them.
That, for me, almost feels like Celtic sending out a message to the rest of the UCL, because there's been a lot of years where Celtic have been criticised for how poor, and the rest of Scotland have been criticised for how poor they've done this competition. But that tonight almost seemed like, sending a message that we can compete against these teams, because Leipzig are a very, very good Bundesliga team in their own right, and they have a lot of quality players. So for Celtic to go out there and, it wasn't any luck, it was domination from Celtic. To go out and dominate a team like that off the park is, to me, it feels like, we can compete in this tournament.
As Nino says, I hope Celtic will silence the also superior English media in the inevitably so-called Battle of Britain at Villa Park. The thing is, though, Mikey, by that point, they could both have already qualified. So they'll probably send out weekend teams.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be interesting to see both sides at full strength going sort of after each other, because I think that gives us and Scottish football as a whole a good idea of the kind of marker of where we are at in terms of Scottish football compared to obviously the big sort of English football as it's kind of hyped up, and rightfully so. I think that it gives us a really good idea of how Celtic would compete in terms of if they were down in England. But yeah, I think that if both sides are through at that point, which they may well be, yes, it will probably be a bit weak in sides. But I think it'd still be a very interesting game, because I just think that the sort of steps that Celtic have taken recently, they had those tough sort of weeks when they were scraping past Ross County and everything. And I think they've kind of come out of that on the other side, and they look so much stronger. And yeah, I think that they could give so many teams a really good run for their money at the moment.
Robbie, it's funny because not that long ago when Celtic were getting hammered 7-1 by Dortmund, there was a lot of stuff about, have Celtic going to learn lessons? Is Brendan Rodgers going to learn? They've then gone away from home, got a very good point against Atalanta. They've beaten a Bundesliga side that are sitting second in the league. And they've now given themselves a great chance. If I'm looking at those 2 home games that they've got against Bruges and Young Boys on the back of today, I'd be pretty confident of winning those 2 games. And then if you look at the away games against Zagreb and Villa, that Villa game might not even matter.
Yeah, I mean, I think Celtic will know probably by that Villa game whether they're going to be going through to the knockouts or, battling for one of the playoff positions. I think, in my opinion, that game at Villa won't matter. And I think that might actually be a good thing because I think both teams will probably be through by that point and we can hopefully have an entertaining game of football because that is one, every Celtic fan will dream of having, gone to Villa Park, gone away one of the trips. It just seems like it could be set off an absolute cracker game. So I think by that point, Celtic will probably know whether they're going to be through or not.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it there, Mikey. It would be fantastic for Celtic to actually get through the knockout stage. It would be really good. Depending on who they get, it could be difficult, of course. But they have now shown that they can actually compete. And I actually agree. I've said this to Michael as well. I like the new format of the Champions League, the Europa League, and the Conference League because it gives teams that maybe wouldn't have qualified before a chance to get through. And I think it does actually suit Celtic this rather than what it used to be in the proper league phase.
The whole issue, I suppose, that kind of arose from it sort of first coming out was the whole, if it's not broken, why would you fix it? But I think that, as you said, it really does benefit because it gives teams a better idea of where they are compared to other teams. When you're playing 3 games, or when you're playing obviously 6 games, but you're playing 3 teams, it's very sort of difficult to tell where you actually are because you're only playing, as I said, those 3 teams. With this whole, the 8-game format, it becomes so much better because you're getting so much more of an array of teams. So you can really tell where you are compared to others, and it sets up that more even format where it gives the teams that are playing the best chance of going through, which, I think is very good for not only Scottish football but for European football as well. And as for Celtic, I think that it has been in the past, they're in a lower pot, so they're always playing teams that they're not expected to beat. But they've had these games where it becomes more Celtic are the favourites for it, and it really benefits them, which I think is obviously brilliant for us.
Yeah, I mean, Robbie, I think when this new phase came in, I think a lot of folk were sceptical, thinking, what's it going to be like? And as Mikey said, why change it? It's not broken. But I genuinely think it has benefited. I've been very impressed with it so far. I like the format and the fact that, even tonight, for example, Liverpool beat Leipzig, then tonight they've beat Leverkusen, but then they're going to be playing Real Madrid in a few weeks' time. I think that's honestly, it's great rather than the actual league format where you're playing the same teams home and away. I think this format is very good. And I say the same thing for the Conference League and the Europa League as well.
Yeah, it's a brilliant format, and I think it also gives it some shocker results. You just need to look at the night at Sporting. I'm not sure if that finished 3-1 to Sporting, but I know they were 3-1 up in Manchester.
4-1.
4-1.
A great result. I know that's Amorim's last game before he goes to Man United, so that's a really, really good farewell for him. But even looking down the competition, you look at the Conference League. I mean, look at Shamrock Rovers, Larne, for the first time being in a European competition. It gives so many more teams opportunities, and I think that, taking a team like Slovan Bratislava, for example, I know they're probably going to finish bottom of this Champions League group, but they probably would never get into the Champions League before this, but how many qualifiers they would have had to go through usually. So to, have this new format where it can give more teams opportunities and, especially when they're in it, give them a better chance of going through, it only benefits every club.
I think, just quickly to add to that point, I think the point that really benefits for me is that you obviously brought up Shamrock Rovers. These teams will go into these competitions expecting they'll just be the whipping boys because they'll be bottom pot, they'll be playing 3 teams that are better than them. The fact that it's random and the fact that you're getting different opponents, it gives you maybe 2 or 3 games where you can go into them with that extra incentive of we could actually win this, we can get higher up the table. And because there's only 8 teams that actually just automatically drop out, it gives you more of an opportunity to go through, even when you'd normally just be bottom of the group on 0 points in a Champions League or a Europa League group anyway. And I think that's just brilliant for not only the big sides, because obviously they get to play more opponents, and it gives obviously the teams opportunities to play in different places, and it gives the fans more away days, but also for the smaller teams to be able to play these big opponents without so much of the risk of, if they lose this, we're probably not going to get through. They can take 3 or 4 games where they do get beat, and they can still get into playoffs, which I think is brilliant for not only the Champions League, but as you said, the other 2 competitions as well.
Also, for me, I think having that factor of no team can drop down to another European competition is only a good thing, and it can provide some focus. Before, if a team, like a City, Barcelona, whatever, finishes third, they're most likely going to get into the competition below and just get to the final. But now it sort of gives that excitement of any team can win this, especially in the Conference League where there's not many good teams in it. Could a Hearts, for example, Graham, could Hearts go far in the competition? We'll just need to wait and see. But it does give more of that optimism for teams that they can cause shockers.
I see Mikey shaking his head though. I know why. But anyway, I do. It's a strange one because, I didn't really like, and you've actually just mentioned it there, Robbie, I didn't like the fact that if you're in the Champions League before, you weren't very good. If you finished third, you still got European football. I never agreed with that. So I actually do like the fact that you don't get that now. But the thing is, Mikey, looking at Celtic, obviously their fans are delighted, doing very well in Europe. Fantastic for them. But domestically, it is a worry for all of us because Celtic are just going to get stronger and stronger. You look at the game on Saturday. Now, before we came on air, we touched on this. You're looking at that game on Saturday. Everyone's looking forward to that domestic semi-final. Aberdeen Celtic, 2 best teams in Scotland just now, thinking this will be a great game. I thought it would go to penalties. And Celtic just absolutely blew Aberdeen away. And I think it's only going to get worse.
Yeah, that's the main concern that I'd have for not only just for my club, but I think that beforehand, obviously, you never really want to see Scottish teams being awful because it doesn't help as European in the European stage, and it doesn't help the reputation of the league. But I will say that you don't want the teams to be brilliant when they're coming up against you in a week's time. And for example, even a team like, obviously we saw it on Saturday with Aberdeen, second best team in the country at the moment. Now, yes, Aberdeen didn't perform. They were very naive in the game. But it just shows that Celtic, if Aberdeen are a level above everyone else, what are Celtic? I mean, yes, there's been a couple of games this season where they've been tested. Obviously, Ross County was one of them. I mean, in stages of the Hearts game, Hearts weren't really behind by a massive amount. And I don't think Celtic in the league have really had many absolute hammerings over teams within the league. But I do think that it will continue to get worse because Celtic, they're going to be raking in more money for the European, obviously, stage. They're spending so much more than every other team. And if you're, for example, a Dundee or an Aberdeen watching this, you're just thinking, what are we going to do to combat this? All these players in Celtic, they get into our team, even the likes of Luke McKowen and Paulo Bernardo, who were on the bench, Adam Ida. I can't name a Scottish club that they wouldn't get into the starting 11 of at the moment, to be completely honest with you. Apart from maybe Aberdeen with like Luke McKowen, because obviously Jamie McGrath's doing very well. But even Celtic's bench players, they get into most of the Premiership clubs, and they're probably one of their best players in every single one of them.
I know you were talking about what Aberdeen and Dundee there. I mean, I think the big picture is what are Rangers going to do? That their fans have put so much expectation on them that they need to be up competing with Celtic, and right now it doesn't even look like they can compete with Aberdeen. So I think if I'd never say this, but if you're for Luke Clement, you're seriously worried about what the future holds for Rangers. I mean, we don't know how much longer he's going to be in a job, but for Rangers, the future looks scary, knowing that they might not be able to overtake Celtic for a long period of time.
And the funny thing is, just to quickly come in on this, Celtic aren't even top of the league by anything. They're level on points with second place. And we're sitting here talking about how dominant they are. Yes, most of that was down to Saturday and the way that they blew Aberdeen away, and obviously tonight. But it's still technically very close domestically. But you just look at that tonight and you look at Saturday and think, how are teams going to compete with that on a weekly basis? Now, Celtic aren't going to be 100% every week, that's obvious. But even them at 50, 60%, they beat most teams in this league. And that's the concern for pretty much everyone. If you're looking at Celtic within the next few games of your fixture list, you're just basically writing that game off.
Well, we don't have long left on the show, and let's touch on Thursday because it is Conference League and Europa League. Europa League on Thursday, 5:45 kickoff in Greece, Olympiacos against Rangers. And on Thursday in the Conference League, Hearts take on Heidenheim at Tynecastle, looking to try and get 3 out of 3. Mike, I'm going to come to you first. How do you see these games going? We just touched on Rangers there, which was a good segue. Rangers have not been brilliant. You know, I think they deserve to beat Motherwell on Sunday. They were the better team. How do you see this one going?
I genuinely can't see Rangers winning, and that's very, I suppose, disappointing for Scottish football, but just the mess that Rangers are in. I genuinely don't see them winning basically every week now, which is so weird. I think they're going into so many games as not the underdog, but with the realistic thought that they could lose. And yeah, I genuinely can't see them winning. And there's so many games this season where you've thought the same thing. And it's very concerning. And obviously we brought it up so many times, but how long does Clermont actually have left? Does it take a big defeat? Does it take consistent defeats? We don't really know. But with the way Rangers are playing, I genuinely don't see them winning.
Robbie, it feels like every week on the show we kind of talk about, is Clermont one game from getting sacked? For about 45 minutes on Sunday, that looked the case. They turned it around. Can they go to Greece and get a win? And I think as well, somebody else that I have to mention as well, and he gets a lot of stick as well, is James Tavernier. Now, he got taken off on Sunday. He didn't have a great game. He gets a lot of stick. Would you imagine that he might be rested on Thursday and maybe bring Sterling in at right back?
I think so, and it wouldn't surprise me, to be honest. I think if you look at Sunday, I mean, for how bad I think it was Jeff it was for defending the goal, the first player that Jack Butland goes to is Tavernier, and does that maybe tell you that, you know, some of the players are not really favouring Tavernier? I don't know, but I wouldn't surprise me if he was ready for this game. But I completely agree with Mikey. I don't see Rangers being able to go away here and beat Olympiacos. Now, I'm not going to sit here and claim I know everything about Olympiacos, but I'm assuming they're a very well structured team that know how to deal in Europe. So I expect Olympiacos will probably win this game quite comfortably.
Can I also just quickly say one thing about James Tavernier before I move on? Yes, his performances have not been great for the last wee while. It's hard to believe that last season he was their most influential player over many, many games. Yes, defensively suspect, but I'm slightly disappointed with the way that not only Rangers fans but just the media is kind of treating Tavernier. Yes, he's so important to that side and he has to step up in these moments, which he hasn't. But just look at the job he's done for Rangers over the years, and I don't think the fans or the Rangers media or whatever it is will really appreciate what they had until Tavernier's gone, because there's not really anyone that stands out anymore. And yes, Tavernier's not been great recently, but you still need to look at him with more respect than he has been given, because over season after season he's been the one that's turned games on their head for Rangers' perspective. And with the way he's been getting treated recently, I'm very disappointed in not only some Rangers fans but obviously the media as well.
As Lena said, it doesn't matter who Rangers appoint for the manager, the problem is structural. Well, let's move on to another team that does have a new manager, and it's Neil Critchley. Hearts take on Heidenheim on Thursday in the Conference League, looking to make it 3 out of 3. Heidenheim are also 2 out of 2 so far. Again, it's a big game, Mikey. Critchley's done okay so far. The big question among Hearts fans is the form of Lawrence Shankland. Now, normally for players off form, you drop him. The problem that Hearts have is we've nobody else to step into his place. So what do you think, as an outsider, Hearts do on Thursday? Because I don't think Shankland will get dropped, but his form, there is no doubt, has dipped dramatically from last season.
Yeah, absolutely. I think anyone could really tell you that, but the problem is they're not going to go and play 17-year-old James Wilson in a European game against a very good side. And Liam Boyce, his shoes look like they're on the wrong feet at times. He's just not performing. But yeah, I think that apart from obviously like the poor form of Shankland is one thing, but you can't really go out and just expect miracles from very young players or Liam Boyce. So yeah, I don't think there's really much other option they have. And as weird as it is to say, are they regretting selling Tagawa or getting rid of him? You wouldn't have thought so with the way he was playing last season, but he would be their best backup at the moment, I think. Unless they do a weird sort of thing where they put Vargas up top, but I don't see them doing that. I think that it will be Shankland up top again.
It's been a good start for Hearts in the Conference League so far, Robbie. I know that people will say we've not played anybody, but the Ammonia game at Tynecastle, first half, was the best I've seen Hearts play for a while. It needs a performance like that again on Thursday because Heidenheim are a decent side, sitting 12th in the Bundesliga. They're not a bad side, so it's going to be a difficult game for Hearts. But if we win that, 9 points might be enough to take us through.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a good start for Hearts in European competition, and my response to that, not playing into well, would be you can only beat what's in front of you, and Hearts have done that relatively well so far. So they'd be hoping to keep that up, but Heidenheim, it won't be an easy team. We know what these German teams are capable of doing to teams. It's happened against Celtic just a couple of weeks ago. Obviously, that's a step above, but there's no doubt that Crouchley will be looking to try and get another win. But Graham, I mean, if I was to ask you quickly, I know you've spoke about Shankland there. It's still very early in the season, but would you cashed in on him now looking back if an offer did come in for him?
It's a strange one because I asked that before. Hindsight's great, but right now, probably yeah, because we're not going to get the money we would have got from him last season because his form has dipped dramatically. And I think I said it before we came on air as well. For me, I don't think he should be in the Scotland squad because he's not been performing. I would actually rather he wasn't in the squad. He was training with Critchley for the next 2 weeks when the break's on and get back to some kind of form. I don't think he should be in the Scotland squad personally. And I hate saying that because I love Shankland, but he doesn't deserve to be in the squad.
Can I also just quickly say, see for this game, obviously on Thursday, I think it's quite a weird one because take, for example, Wolfsburg, who are also in the Bundesliga. I think they're 2 places below Heidenheim. For some reason, there's been this kind of thing almost subconsciously with people that think Hearts have maybe got a better chance than they maybe do. Now, I'm not saying Hearts are guaranteed to lose or anything, but had it been, for example, Hearts Wolfsburg, who Wolfsburg are more well known, they're sort of seen as a bigger side within Germany. Heidenheim, not many people hugely know who they are. But if you kind of take that into account, if it was Wolfsburg Hearts were playing on Thursday, does that mentality of Hearts fans or just fans around Scotland kind of change? Because for me, it kind of subconsciously does, because I think if Hearts are playing Wolfsburg, it becomes more of a game where I'm thinking Hearts are going to lose this. But against Heidenheim, not knowing a massive amount about them, them not being a massive side within Germany, I think that almost has the subconscious element of thinking Hearts maybe have a better chance than they maybe actually do. I don't know if you feel the same about that, but that's kind of what I'm almost getting from it.
Yeah, potentially. I mean, again, I don't know a lot about them, but it will be a difficult game. And even if we lose, though, I still think we've got games that can win. Like we've got Petrol Cup at home, which I think will be 3 points. So if we can get even a point away from home against Bruges or against Copenhagen, there's a chance that Hearts go to European football after Christmas, which is great. But yeah, I love European nights, so I'm looking forward to Thursday. So we are out of time. Thank you to Robbie and to Mikey for joining me tonight. Thank you, as always, for the comments. Congratulations to Celtic, who beat Leipzig by 3-1 tonight at Celtic Park. They're now on 7 points and have a great chance to qualify. We are back on Thursday. We do it all over again, looking at Rangers and Hearts in Europe. Hopefully, both Scottish teams can do well. We will see you again on Thursday. Take it easy, and thank you, as always, to Robbie and Mikey.
Celtic in the Champions League with all the build-up and reaction on Independence Live.